Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build. Brent, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Adam. It's great to be here.
I'm glad we finally made this happen. A bunch of back and forth. Glad you stuck with me. Really excited to have you on and share your story.
Oh, I'm excited just to be here. Love what you're doing. Love what you're building here. Just giving a voice basically to a lot of people that are doing amazing things and just allowing them to see like, hey, there's life in, there's life out of the service, and there's life to be made. It's awesome.
Totally.
Awesome.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Of course.
So where are you calling in from? Where's home base for you?
Home base is still Pinehurst, North Carolina. I'm actually calling from one of our factories in Durham, North Carolina, but it's all North Carolina is just a slew of small towns. So Army moved us out to Pinehurst in 2014. We just stayed.
Amazing.
Love it.
Amazing. We're going to get into what that means, your factories later on. Got the plug on your shirt there, BotBuilt. So we'll dig into that, a bit later. So to kick off, questions we reviewed right before we started recording. First is, I know you have 2 kids and a son-in-law. I think they might be aged out of service at this point. Nonetheless, the question is, if your kids approached you asking you that they want to join, what's your reaction? What would you do?
I mean, it's obviously mixed, right? Because like as a parent, you just want I've got girls and I'm Abu Nath. I want to have these daughters that are just like perfect and have great lives and amazing, peaceful existences. And at the same time, it's almost selfish to say that just because the Army gave me so much. Every operation was just such a learning experience. It's like, even the worst of it is horrifying and beautiful at the same time. So you don't want them to miss out on that. I think I would, as an Army man, I think with daughters, I would obviously say really consider the Air Force. I just cannot say enough good things about the Air Force. I'm definitely a fan of some of the 3-letter friends as well. Would maybe try to push them in that direction a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's a family that you cannot replicate anywhere else, and that is just part of being in the crucible moments that defending to the last measure brings you to. And I would be supportive. I don't know if my wife would be as supportive, but I think that I would be at least a willing participant in driving them down to the MEP station to get all their physicals done. That's for sure.
Yeah, great answer. I'm very aligned with a lot of what you're saying. It's a really funny double-edged sword kind of dynamic where you want them to experience the amazing experience that come from service, but at the same time, it's a parental, wanting to protect kind of attitude.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like, my church always teaches that, you want to take on the harder responsibility because there are usually blessings that come from it, but they aren't good at telling you those blessings come from hard-fought victories. And that's what being a war is. It sucks and it's beautiful. And you want all of that knowledge. You don't want to have to go through it. You certainly don't want your kids to have to go through it, but it is a blessing.
Yeah. Well said, man. So next question is along the lines of this thought of how do we improve kind of transition for veterans in general? Obviously, it's a two-way street, but also as veterans, we could always do better, right? Everyone could always do better at really quite everything. So that said, what are your thoughts on bettering kind of the transition, culturally speaking, for veterans coming into civilian workforce?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this just because I came into the service a little later in life. We had come out of a couple of businesses and then gone in. So I guess that was a little bit different, but just what I experienced coming out of it was amazing is that the Army has this like transition program for the U.S. Army anyway, and it's horrible. It was just a bunch of lifelong bureaucrats telling these soldiers how to get jobs, how to hold jobs, and they've never done, they're protected by the world's largest union. Like these people will never be fired. It was just this amazing dichotomy in my brain of what are you actually teaching people here? And the education was a failure point in my book. So I have seen some units, some of the smaller units I've gotten to be a part of do a really good job of transitioning guys out that, they put them through grad school. They teach them all these good skills. They have these 6 months, that they can just be getting paid by the Army, kind of have that safety net, but also be learning some new job and some new internship or externship. I think there's a lot that can be done there culturally to just build up this, hey, I'm a believer anyway. And there's this old stupid joke, and you'll forgive me for just going off on a little bit on this, but the CEO comes to his CFO and says, hey, I want to pay for all of our employees to get any additional degree they want to. And the CFO was like, cool. What's the service extension on that then? How much longer are they going to have to stay at the company? And the CEO was like, no, don't put any limit on it. And the CFO goes, well, what if we give them all this education and then they leave? And he goes, well, what if we don't give them an education and they stay? And I just think, in my experience, when the Army has given to people, when the service, the DoD has given someone something, they're more bought into that organization than they ever were before. And I think if we have this, instead of this mentality of, oh, we got to keep them here as long as we can, and oh, when you leave, it's this whole big, how dare you leave the unit? Like, no, this is freaking going to war. It's not for everyone. Some of us just get our tails whooped and it's time to go out into the real world. Give them everything we can to make sure that they're successful and ambassadors for that service down the line, so that you don't hear these horror stories of like, that often happens where, they're asking the veteran at the workplace, what was it like? And he's like, it sucked. I turned over rocks in basic training, and then I basically did that same thing professionally for 4 years, and then I got the hell out. Like, that's got to change. That just has to change. It has to be a tempo change. On the flip side, civilians, we definitely can be more welcome to veterans. We have to be understanding of the situation. I don't know what the future of veterans are going to look like, but those GWAT veterans, we've been through a lot, right? I'm not even going to compare us to what we do in the IDF, but just knowing that we have seen some things, done some things, and the world got a little crazy, and then now we're seeing it with this backward lens. Just be patient with them. Just be loving and accepting of the fact that they thought what they were doing was right. Most veterans don't want to hear your opinion on weapons of mass destruction. They don't want to hear how, like, maybe, the Taliban was right, or whatever your wild wazoo opinion is. They literally just said, I want to do what I think is right now. They raised their right hand for whatever reason. There's 10 billion reasons for every individual in their brain to join up. And they did it because they love you. Like, they were willing to give their life for you to have freedom. Just accept that and say thanks. That's it. And then you can create a nice environment in the workplace. It's not as standoffish and not as worrisome, I guess, for them.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer, man. I recently heard an SF veteran talk about, it's his own program that he's initiating, but more of this kind of dynamic happening in the military, where the understanding that you need to have maintenance, right? Whether that's psychological or physical, for your operators, right? Just as we have maintenance for a weapon system, for an aircraft, for a vehicle, you need that same approach for the humans, which I thought was really funny and interesting to hear, because you would imagine that would be the core and first principle of maintenance in the military, but it's actually just not at all. So it's a really just like a strange thing to listen to and kind of comprehend and digest, as like, oh, wait a second, yeah, that's it's really silly how backwards it is. So I heard you,
love that.
I heard you touch on some of that. Yeah, it was
For
really,
sure.
really neat to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a weird concept, because a lot of us, I went into the service just thinking like, all right, do whatever it takes. And by the way, like, full disclosure, I know you want to get into this stuff later, but like, when I came in, at first when I started looking at the services, I tried all of them out, took all the tests. I was like, I'm a businessman, I'm pretty good at analytics, maybe going to Intel, maybe something different. And like, then I started studying, and like, maybe I kind of just want to go to war. Like, I should really go to war. And by like week 2 of basic training, I remember saying like, if I'm not infantry, I'm nothing. Like, it was just such a brainwash moment where my wife was like, probably reading my letters like, what the heck is, what? Killing people? No, like, but it just becomes that way, right? So if you have that mentality, so I was just grinding out. And the first time I went to a high-speed unit, and they start talking about preventative maintenance of your body, right? Seeing the shrink every week. All of a sudden it's, are we stretching enough? And I'm like, no, you just do the thing. Like, have you met with the nutritionist this week, Brent? Because your diet's a little off. I'm like, what is this? It was even a mind flip just coming from the conventional side, So it's very important that we just look at what that maintenance actually means for ourselves and for our families, frankly.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Awesome, Brent. So everyone gets a formal introduction. Kick off with yours. Brent served in the U.S. Army as an officer, deploying with special operations units for over a decade, working in all sorts of commands and missions. Brent is proud to have been around the bravest and best in the world had to offer. Today, Brent is the CEO of BotBuilt, a company dedicated to creating novel robotic construction techniques that uses proprietary software to turn any custom plan into easy to assemble panels with automated robotic code and patented tooling systems. Most importantly, Brent is a husband and father of 2 girls and 1 son-in-law. All right, awesome, Brent. So we're going to kick off, we're going to do a life story, kick off with childhood, where you grew up. And I guess, usually I ask what led you to service, but in this case, you'll tell us how you first started your career and then got into service. So talk to us about childhood.
Yeah. So childhood is kind of awesome for me, frankly. Like, I think I was raised by 2 parents that were very loving and very committed but also very pragmatic. Like we're talking Midwest, Southern, like just children of immigrant types. Like, let's just do the thing. So my mother is a very successful businesswoman. She's run an ad company for, I'm not going to say how long, so I don't want to get mad at me, but a long time. Just retired from that this last year. My father is a very successful gastroenterologist and just a, he's a politician. He'll never own that, but he's very good at, bringing people together and bringing sides together, which is awesome. My grandfather on both sides and my grandmothers on both sides are both very entrepreneurial. My grandfather on my dad's side, he had Parkinson's, so I didn't really get to talk to him much, but he would always set that good example and tone. Even when he couldn't speak well, he was just a loving human being, which was amazing to see. And my grandfather on my mother's side was like the world's greatest salesman, like ice to Eskimos type dude. And he actually started the first scientific sharing agreement between the US and the USSR. And so when I grew up, I would go to his house all the time, right? Dad's a doctor, mom's a businesswoman. That means you're staying at grandpa's house. And so all of his house was just filled with pictures of wheat, like the plant, and then like these weird pictures of him with individuals that looked foreign to me, right? Like that's my whole experience of that. And it wasn't until I was older, he died when I was about 16, but when I got older, I got to realize like, oh, the wheat was there because he had done this like crazy cool green revolution business where he was building a wheat seed that would fully germinate at very short height, so like very small. And so in Russia, they make everything big, right? And so the wind would just blow this wheat over. And that's when you had this huge, huge starvation crisis in Russia in the 60s. And so my grandfather got to work with obviously appropriate government approval. And I think everyone here knows what I'm saying there. And then worked with, I've got some cool pictures of him just with a younger science and ag minister, Mikhail Gorbachev. And they would just create these scientific sharing agreements where he would teach them to use this type of wheat seed and he would get to sell into Russia. The U.S. obviously got probably some information. But, it was interesting to see that mindset. And they just basically made sure that me, my sister, my older brother, and then I've got a few other siblings that came later, we just knew, like, there are no limits to what you can do. And whatever you're doing, like, you just serve. Like, you just freaking get it done. My dad was very successful as a doctor, but most weekends that he would drag me out to fix the sprinklers with him. And as a kid, they would help me, like, learn how to do their taxes. So as a young child, I realized very 'quickly, like, they're making bank. And I'm shopping at shoes for, like, Payless. I'm using, like, hand-me-down clothes. My older brother is 6 years older than me, and he's a beast, right? 6'4", 6'5", just a hoss, and I'm not. And so I'd be wearing his baggy clothes. I'm like, wait a minute, why are we doing all this work, Dad? We're rich. And he's like, no, we're not. No, I'm rich. Mom would always say that. I'm rich. You're not. And you need to learn this stuff. And they just wanted to make sure I did the hard work. My grandfather would take me out to the range, make sure I learned what hard work really was. You can't build that anywhere else. Like, I'm so beyond thankful. By the time I was like 12, I had a good friend that played in a band, and I got to do that for a few years, just basically living in like a fantasy camp because his dad was a very gifted, famous musician. And so, just hanging on to these incredibly famous, talented people and just getting to be around them in that room. I was way too young and spoiled to understand any of it. Like, I blatantly would walk out of studio sessions with people that I'm not even going to name here because my dad will strangle me. Just knowing that I walked out of those rooms. If you're an arrogant prick as a teenager, you're a true artist, obviously. By the time I was 19, 20, I kind of got sick of the grind. I joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like, I just wanted to find a church that was action-oriented, and I found this peace and this sense of belonging there. I quit smoking cigarettes. I liked about 4 packs a day. I like to take things into extremes, and so had to back off a bit from that habit. And so once I quit that, joined this church, I started just looking into what I could do with my life that wouldn't require me to be a homeless person. I don't think people realize, like, if you want to be a rock star, you're a homeless person. You're a well-paid homeless person, but you live on a van or a bus. Yeah. It just takes the glamour right out of it when you're just sucking down ciggies and, living off truck stop food. It's not that fun. Mm-hmm. But getting to do these outlandish things meant that I, again, didn't have limits. We just decided, okay, I met my wife. We have a young family. We started a financial company with a friend who built this thing up from the ground up and just had a great time with it, really. It was incredibly successful. I got to learn about a SaaS company we built up to and help grow that. It was like a web-based CRM before there was the cloud. Did some congressional consulting after those successfully went through. But all of this time is in kind of the shadow of, just middle of all of this, 9/11 hits. And in this moment, I just had this experience where at the time I was still in a band, by the way. And I remember my bass player came into my room and was like, dude, wake up. We're on the West Coast at the time. Like, you need to come see what's happening. And I remember my bass player and I both looking at each other going, we got to join the Army. And so my grandfather was in World War II. He was part of 25th ID, 27th IR, like 19 months on the freaking front line. And I've got some stories from him that it's still blowing my mind that I got to thankfully share in Japan when I was just over there, because he had a business partner in Japan that he met on the battlefield, in one of those crazy experiences that can only come from two different opposing side scout teams that just get lost and have to communicate with each other instead of kill each other, which is kind of a cool experience. He gained a best friend from that, which lasted to the end of his life. But my brother was in the first Gulf War, so back when it was cool to invade Iraq in the 90s, my brother got to be a part of that as an infantryman. He was actually part of the first Bradley vehicle teams as well, which was fun because he was tall, so he had to be the Kawasaki driver because there's no way he's standing up Bradley all the time. And so it was just like, okay, we got to do this. But you start making money, having a family, you kind of just push it off. And so by 2008, it was just like, my gosh, I got to go and do this. I was so afraid that the war in Afghanistan was about to end and I missed my shot. I know, looking back at it, like, nope. In fact, like, I think my grandkids will probably have another shot at that country, right? Like, it's just, it's the graveyard of empires for a reason. We haven't lost our soul yet. We'll probably go back there for it again. But I wanted to join immediately. And so, we were successfully feeling pretty comfortable in life. I had two daughters that were younger at this point. My wife's like, let's have an adventure. I have like the best wife on earth. She is so supportive. I think people hear me talk and they're like, my gosh, who puts up with this garbage? And my wife does. Like, every freaking day, she just puts up with this. And so we tried them all out. My stepfather, my mom's husband, Reg, he had served as an aviator in Vietnam. So he's a fighter pilot dude that went that course. He's also a laser physicist for a while for them. So I think his deal with them is he agreed to do laser physics nonsense if they agreed to let him fly first. And so that's a good negotiating point to have.
That's wild.
That he had. And then, knowing what I did at the service, so I went to all of them. I took the AFOQT, and then I took, that's the Air Force Officer Qualification Test, and then I took the ASVAB. And I was in school at the time at night for law school, just to kind of keep my brain sharp. And at one point, I remember just thinking, okay, I'll take these tests, and I'll see what the services have to say about timeline. But my wife and I were watching TV, and I think I was watching at the time the show called Surviving the Cut, which is like about Ranger School, right? And just for the record, I remember watching the show going like, I can't believe my brother did this. What idiot is bear crawling at 4 a.m, like fighting over a taser? Like, what is this nonsense? Don't worry about that, honey. I'll never do that garbage. Just like having this fun. And a Marine JAG ad came on. And both my wife and I were intrigued by it. I think I was intrigued by like that Marines, that they had all these great slogans back then. We don't take applications. We take commitments, like all this crazy, like, you don't belong here, but we'll let you in maybe. This kind of FOMO selling that they did so well. I think my wife really liked the uniform. Not going to lie. She was probably looking at that dude in the uniform going, you should think about the Marines. Yeah. And the story that I think your listeners will appreciate is I remember going to the Marine recruiting office, and they have an OSO, as they call it, the Officer Selection Officer. And I don't remember his last name. He's a captain. And his name was Chris. So I called him Chris. So I walk in like a $2,000 suit, got my little briefcase with me, in law school. I'm like, hey, Chris, I'm Brent. Doesn't shake my hand, just looks at me up and down, goes, how many push-ups can you do? And I'd gotten a trainer, like I got myself there, right? So I was doing okay. I'm like, well, I can do 92 in 2 minutes. It's like, good. How many pull-ups? Dead hang. I was like, oh crap, this guy. All right, maybe I'll try and lighten it up. So I'm like, well, in this suit, I'm only giving you my like age, whatever requirement, minimum 21, because I don't want to sweat this out. No smile, no nothing, no affect change. Which 3 mile time. I'm like, I'm not fast. I tried. I got myself better. So I'm like, it's 21:45 right now. He goes, yeah, you're going to want to get that down to like an 18. And so it hit me. I'm like, oh, wait, I bet you this guy probably just has his Franklin Day planner all messed up. Let me help him out. I'm like, hey, Chris, my name's Brent Wadas. I'm actually not here for the infantry. I'm here for a JAG position. And he goes, yeah, this is the Marines. I'm looking for Captain America. I was like, all right, we're not going to be friends, buddy. So went over to the Navy. They just had a young ensign, as they call it, their second lieutenant version, right? And that's their recruiter kid that's in there, scared and afraid, all alone. And he had 2 quotas he had to fill that day. One was for the weapons systems officer. I'm not sure if that's what the Navy calls it, the WASO position, backseater of a Super Hornet, or being on a submarine, neither of which appeals to me in any way, shape, or form. By this point, I at least knew enough that I wanted to be somewhat attached to the ground and somewhat attached to the fight. And that just felt so disconnected. And so he's like, well, okay, so submarines out, but like, also you still get to go to flight school. I'm like, I don't think you're hearing me. I don't want to go to flight school at all. He's like, but like, you can still go to it. It's so cool. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you'll be like Goose. And I just remember like as a salesman stopping him and being like, kid, your sales pitch to me right now is that I'm the loser in Top Gun that dies. You realize like you're not Maverick, you're not Iceman, you're just freaking the dude that dies. Like that's that's not a pitch, man. And he's like, well, you're still the pilot. Like if the pilot becomes incapacitated, I'm like, even worse. Like, so he has been shot through my cabin, and I'm just going to, no, not at all. Air Force was like, no, we'd really like you to flight. Okay, what's the timeline? 3.5 years. Nope, like cank that, like just to get a slot there, right? And then, classic tales, go to the Army office, hand my little ASVAB score, like, oh, it's great. What do you want to do? I'm like, I'd love to work in special operations. Like, oh, cool. When would you like to go? I'm like, sooner the better. He just looks at his little computer, goes, I can have Fort Benning in 2 weeks. He's like, done. Life decision made. Like, we're set.
Amazing.
Let's go friggin' Army right there. And from there, I got signed a kind of cool guy contract to do some other things. It was just off to the service. Had to explain it to my family and go.
It sounds like you went from being convinced on, I mean, at least from a commercial perspective, right, on the JAG route, which is obviously very different from going into Army, infantry, special forces, special operations. Like, how did that mindset shift? It sounded like a 2-minute ordeal.
Yeah, I think I wanted to study the law, but I definitely didn't have a passion to practice it. Okay. I'll be blunt. A lot of my examples of what lawyers were a lot of business attorneys and real estate attorneys that, their like work level to income wasn't that great to me. I was just like, wow, you just filed paperwork and someone paid, like, it didn't seem rewarding at all, but
sure.
But it kept my mind engaged. I'm a big case law nerd. I'm a big precedent nerd. And so I enjoyed digging into cases. I enjoyed tort. Like, con law is awesome. It's fun. But there's no passion there. And so when, looking at it in the grand scheme, the JAG thing was really just this like, oh, that's a route I could take. But in actuality, I think deep down in my heart, both my wife and I knew, like, that's not where the fight is. That's not where the fun is. That's not where – there's some cool JAGs out there. I've deployed some amazing JAGs that are like on the horn with you or on the X with you. They're making judgment calls that are incredibly intense. They're keeping everyone out of prison like they should. Like, they're just doing their job. They're amazing dudes. But like, to get to that point, it was not the path I was willing to take at that juncture. It was just kind of one of those like, this could be cool, but at the same time, my goodness, let's get in this fight ASAP. Like, let's just do this thing. And the Army, surprise, not that big on. I'm sorry, I don't mean like the dude was literally like, I can have you there in 2 weeks. Like, what do you want? Let's go. And it was just such a difference.
From just like an outside perspective, like, why should it not be that way? Like, if someone's knocking on the door looking to serve, it should be, all right, yeah, where do you want to go? Great.
Yeah.
See you.
I guess on the flip side, I understand quotas now. I get like, the big joke at basic training is, but my recruiter said, right, like, they lie. They're salespeople to a degree. But yeah, the Army is just one of those few places where they've got so many different jobs and so many different opportunities. They can just start filling seats. Yeah. And every other service is so specialized. It's very tough to have that same level of openness. And I kind of grew to appreciate that. I deployed with MARSOC guys at one point, and I really loved how selective that service was because their discipline was top tier. Like, but they had a very specific role to play. Whereas in the Army, you can have a dude that does like hospital administration, and I'm a deer killer that happened to wear a uniform. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this whole crazy range. And so it's just kind of fun to see that. It's going to be frustrating because there's a larger bureaucracy than other services, but at the same time, I mean, 2 weeks, all expenses paid trip to the, Benning School for Wayward Boys. You can't beat that, man. You just can't beat it. It's awesome.
Yep. Sounds about right. So taking a step back first of all, I was going to ask if any like family members had influence on your decision. I mean, it sounds like you had a handful of family members who served. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that was a yes. But taking a step back though, with your grandfather served in World War II, I was surprised to hear that he shared stories, right? Because typically what we hear is World War II vets just simply don't share stories. Really interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of, your experience with your grandfather in terms of him sharing, about his service.
He didn't share a lot, that's for sure. And every story I got was extracted, right? He taught us how to gather intel without really saying, I'm teaching you how to gather intel. And then he would play along when we do the little things, right? We'd ask the right questions, the probing questions, the tell me more variables that we'd throw into his conversation. But he was very guarded about his service. And I don't think I appreciated as a kid why at all. He definitely had a huge amount of PTSD, according to my mom, that he just kind of fought through to be successful, because everyone did, right? That's what you did back then. His unit in particular got lost for a long time. They spent 19 months on the front line. Part of that was on accident. Just their the 25th ID obviously is a very storied unit because they have a lot of Medal of Honor recipients. They have a lot of posthumous Medal of Honor recipients.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the suck. They were Pacific region, Luzon theater, retaking of Luzon, right? Part of that. No, we want it back now towards the end of the war, last year and a half of the war. And so the stories that I got from him were either like these kind of fun anecdotes as a little kid, when we'd play, like he'd get out all of his rifles and we'd get to go play, like my brother and I would go play, whatever shoot 'em up game we wanted to, after we would check they're unloaded most of the time. I think he expected us at a certain, like, it's like, you're 7, make sure, like he's one of those dudes, like, come on, just figure it out. But like, he wouldn't say too much, but when I think I was 14 or 15, I remember asking specifically at a point, like, what was it like? And I remember for the first time in a long time, he's just such a jovial dude. Like, he just loved to be selling. He just loved to be telling stories. And so sometimes his stories would wander into this, like, is this real realm? Just because he enjoyed that, like, fantasy world that he could get people to go in, because he's so good at just using his mouth to just paint pictures. And I just remember he got a different look in his eye that was completely contemplative. And, sorry, this is like one of the last really good memories I have of him, just being like, he said, it was horrifying in a way I can't begin to describe. And I did things that I don't think your generation would have approved of. But at this point, they mutilated our dead. So when we'd find them, they were in positions of sexual compromise and just these horrifying scenes that he had to come upon. He's like, we just started to lose it. And I just started to take blood at any instance I could take blood. To the point where, like, how they say you're not supposed to kill the messenger? I didn't care anymore. I remember shoving a grenade down a messenger's jacket and laughing. Like, it was just one of those, like, oh. And as a teenage boy, I'm a little arrogant prick, and ban all that crap. I'm like, I think Grandpa committed some war crimes. Ha 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 ha. But like, to him, it was just like survival at that point. It was just, let's deal with it. But my favorite story that he told several people throughout his life is just, he would do a lot of work with these charities in Japan, in Tokyo in particular. And it was all with this family that my mom grew up kind of knowing. They'd write each other and send Christmas cards and come out and visit and all this stuff. But apparently the way he told it to me, and whether or not this is just like war fantasy, this is real, I don't know. But it tracked with everyone that in Japan that would, that had met him. He and his unit were lost. So he was out scouting out where his potential headquarters could be. This other Japanese unit was apparently lost, and they were scouting out their thing. And they come across this, open field, and they just raise rifles at each other, and they've just got them pointed at each other. And they say, at a certain point, where my grandpa said to me specifically, it's like, it was maybe 30 seconds. It felt like 2 days, just holding weapons at eye level at each other. We slowly lower our weapons down. I speak enough Japanese, he speaks enough English that we figure out he knows where my unit is, and I know where his unit is. We share that information. We get back to our headquarters units, and we have exchanged information at this point, and we just became friends. After the war, we just started writing each other, and that's who we used to do some business over there. And just, I've got an old VHS thing we've digitized recently that has his friend from Japan sending this VHS, video of, here's the school you helped build, Virgil. Let me show you the classrooms. Like, it was just so cool to see, like, his legacy over there, all from this moment of just absurdity, right? Like, just easily one could have shot the other, totally fine, totally acceptable, ROE covered and good. And in that moment, they found humanity in each other, that they're both just scared kids that have been chosen to do a task that needs to get done, and they're going to help each other out. And I absolutely love that moment, because it taught me a lot about, my grandfather could compartmentalize that way and just say, yeah, war is hell, but in this moment, he's just a dude, I'm just a dude, let's figure it out. And this little poor country boy from Tennessee trying to make a living, this guy's just fighting for something he truly believes in. But right now, I need to know where the food is. Where's the food? Let's go. I love that.
That's an absolutely unbelievable story. And that's from that military story all the way through till now. Absolutely unbelievable all around. So thank you for sharing that. What you repeated that your grandfather told you in terms of, sharing what he experienced. I guess that's kind of, to some degree at least, right? What I was alluding to when it comes to closing cultural gap veterans come into just civilian environment in general. Like, how do we, it's interesting. Like, what are your thoughts on that take for yourself in your life in terms of sharing, not sharing, how to share, what to share?
Yeah, I have definitely, I think there's a point where sometimes you realize you've crossed that line, like where you're sharing something and you realize, like, you're in a room full of civilians and what you just shared is not normal and not like it comes with like a warning label or something first, and you realize like, oh right, this ain't a team room. Like this is a break room. Like Kathy's just crying now, Brent. What have you done? Right? So you gotta like tile that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the thing you said about maintenance, or that you shared there earlier, that's huge. I think as veterans, no matter what we've seen, if you've gone to jump school, right, like you've just done these weird things that people don't think about that might just be routine for you. If you've gone to a war zone, even if you didn't get in a tick on a daily basis, if you just saw something get blown to hell and then had to just freaking deal with the rest of your mission and tell your dude, sorry that John's dead, but we're going to bag tag and then we're going to move on, like that's not normal for people. And if you're not doing the steps of self-care, like I am a huge believer, always have been, by the way. Like before I joined the service, I studied psychology at length from the age of 13 on. I believe that psychology is a superpower, like therapy is a superpower, because you get to know yourself and your limits, get to know those hot points, what's driving you a little bit mad. And if you can build up like a close list of trusted individuals that you can share those moments that are just kind of eating at you a little bit, it becomes much easier to deal with those moments so they don't become like flashes of heat and intensity that can become completely inappropriate, or worse, can just derail your life in a way that happens all too often for the guys that we know. So for me, just that preventative maintenance side has to involve a lot of mental health. For me, it involves a lot of spiritual health. And then just finding people that you can trust and share things with. And quite frankly, as far as the stories go, I'm a big believer in podcasts like this are now becoming more commonplace, where more stories are being told. And I think that's important for people that have been just sitting on the sidelines, their God-given right to not be involved in a war, but to understand what happens out there in the world, that this isn't just all this perfect utopia that we get to live in the land of the free and home of the brave. Israel has been at war since forever, right? We've got the Pakistan-India situation getting a little bit hotter in tribal regions that have been at war since forever. And these are people that then have their mind shaped by constant conflict and intense conflict. And if you don't understand what those stories are and how to talk to those people, you're literally just carving out a huge portion of the world's population from your ability to speak to other people and connect as humans. And that just, to me, seems limiting. So, I think that was probably part of the draw that led me into the military service as a whole, just wanting to, cross that breach, that I might not come home alive, but at least I would have said, I got to experience this. I got to live at that high potential. But I think it's incumbent upon those that are back home to listen to these stories and say, okay, what is actually happening over there? We can paint broad brush strokes all we want. We can talk about Russia this, Ukraine that, Poland this, missiles that, but like there are entrenched mindsets that have only come from having to carry out bags of the dead of your loved ones. And I think it is incumbent upon those of us that had to go and serve in those regions to let the world know, like, hey, this is important. And by the way, like personal soapbox moment here, like I believe in that for two reasons. One, it's just good for cultural understanding and cross knowledge. But two, we, especially as a people, are a powerful nation here in the United States. We sure as hell better know what we're doing before we send off kids to war. Like war is expensive, and not during, I mean after. And boy, did we not plan for the after. We, thanks to Israel primarily, right? We've got all this cool tech that turned like the golden 20 minutes into the golden hour, into like the golden 6 hours. We can have a dude with multiple wounds, a lost limb, and it can be a day before you're Black Hawking him in, and he's still going to live, which means someone has to deal with the expense of the medical on the backside. They've got to deal with the mental anguish. They've got to deal with the retirement. I mean, there's all these things that come with that, and then put them back into society. We haven't done a great job as a nation of understanding that true price, because we've been so bent on these, well, it's just a war. No, it's not just a war. It's a lifestyle now that our nation is embarking in. I believe in it. I love it. I think that, Deo Prissa Libera, whatever slogan you want to throw out there, matters. We should be defending those who can't defend themselves. But we as a nation have to then talk the serious talk of who are we fighting and why? What's it going to cost us on the backside? What can we be doing to support those that came back broken? And what can we be doing to make sure that the next generation is prepared for a conflict that might just intensify?
Yeah,
because it really can.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, well said. It's absolutely a complicated issue, and as you pointed out, and literally the reason why I'm doing this and the show exists is to talk about it more, right, with people that can understand one another, and therefore, I hope, little side point here, where I got the best feedback I never expected relatively recently, where someone reached out and said, "Hey, listening to stories of veterans on your show allowed me to better understand my spouse and what he went through and his experiences without him having to say anything. So I thought that was extremely powerful and really interesting to hear, to the point of, if you can share in a space that is not pointed at the break room crew who have never served, then potentially you can kind of ease a gap as like a, side point, or it's not directed, so not offensive per se. But that's like it's really a topic that, I don't know, I felt kind of, for lack of a better word, pressure over the entirety of my life in a civilian setting. If asked about service, I kind of just become withdrawn and have less to say than anything. So it's just an interesting. Yeah.
That's a huge deal because if someone is listening at this point to the Veterans Who Build show, they're not expecting war stories, like whoops a daisy on you, right? Like that's the right. listener's fault. But yeah, to give them a safe space where they can be listening and getting these insights, that's a huge service to them. And also, I think the breadth that you've had on, you served so ably in a country that I often equate to being more of a cop than just a veteran, right? And that's, I think sometimes people are like, oh, well, he's just a cop. He wasn't like a super soldier. Like, no. Cops are deployed 365. Mm-hmm. Like, think about the intensity of being in a war zone as an American soldier, right? When you're deployed, it's like this known thing. You hit the bird, you say goodbye to the family, done, you're out the door. Mm-hmm. And it's for a period of time, your life is going to be hell on earth. And then you come home, you got to kind of deal with that hell. There's no break for the cop. It is just every day going into the cruiser. I've got a few cousins that served as officers, and I remember one of them had his partner shot, like assassinated during some riots that were happening when people were doing the whole defund the police nonsense. And to me, that's like a real intensity that I don't think gets addressed enough. And so we can have this shared experience where we can say, okay, I get where you're freaking going with one. Show some empathy there. And I didn't really appreciate that till I started talking with friends over in the Israeli forces, where I was like, oh. So I was just kind of like, you guys are so good at all this stuff we give you, and you improve all this tech, and then you have all these tactics that we learn from. And they're like, yeah, bro, like you do these 6-month rotations in Afghanistan. I'm here. Like, I'm going to the pizza parlor, and it's a war zone. Like, there's, you know what I mean? It's just a different mindset that we have to adapt to and learn from.
Yeah, it's a service of deployment is kind of how I like to put it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So the other family question I had is if you and your brother overlapped at any point.
No. He just he did a quick ticket, basically, kind of got in, got out shortly thereafter. Enjoyed it. Didn't have any overlap. He prepared me for a basic training that didn't exist anymore. I will say that much. Like, I don't think as a kid he'd teach me, like, as a younger man, he'd teach me all the little sing-song things they do to run to cadence and stuff like that. A lot of them had racist undertones, I'm not going to lie. And I didn't realize it because I was just like, that's normal. That's just what you sing. And I was like, no, I see where yep, that's, I remember a drill sergeant like just stopping me as soon as I started a cadence, because like, all right, Wadas, go out there, yo, cadence. I'm like, yeah, drill sergeant. And I start this one line. He's like, shut that down. Like, the minute he knew what I was doing, and he just shut that the hell down right now. But Chad did prepare me for like the worst case scenario. And at the time, the surge was about to get going. They were just like, we're just thankful you're here. Just thank you for being willing to go to war. What can we do to train you on this? Let's go. So it was definitely a more refined service. His was more of a hands-on experience, but fun in its own right, for sure.
So walk us through kind of, you sign up, you go with the Army. Walk us through what basics like, the process, essentially. The pipeline.
The process is interesting, I guess, especially as an older person going through. Right. You go to MEPS, take the test. You see all these like kids. I mean, they're freaking kids, and they're just like, I'm trying for this, whatever specialty MOS they want to do. And it's like a culture shock for me all of a sudden, because some of them are there because they like want to serve the country. Some of them are there because they have no other options, right? Some of them are part of a prison deferment program from the judge, but they're there to serve nonetheless. You go to basic training. I think I definitely had like an expectation weird set there. They fly you out to Atlanta, then they bust you into Columbus, Georgia. So I did my basic and my infantry school and then infantry officer school and OCS all at Fort Benning. They bus you there, and I was expecting this like shark attack moment as soon as we got there, right? As I kept on like waiting for this moment. But the first week is just in processing. It's like all admin. They have a drill sergeant, but he's just like, hey, gang, like, let's get in line. And, they take you to this DFAC. And I just remember there's all this fried food at the dining facility. And I'm like, this is a trick. I'm like, oh, something is wrong. And every day we'd go back there, and like, it wasn't the trick yet. And like, they teach you how to like fold the hospital corners on your bed, teach you about marching, teach you about, what it is to be at attention versus parade rest, who you're doing that for, all these little basic things. And then all of a sudden, like, day zero comes and they're like, all right, get on the bus. And that's when you're like, it's about to get real. But like I said, for me, and I don't know if this was like this for a lot of guys, but this was definitely like the surge is about to get going. And given that circumstance, it was a different world. And so we get on the bus. I'm warning some of the guys on the bus. I'm like, guys, here's what my brothers told me. Like, you're about to get freaking slammed. Don't expect to sleep for the first 3 days. Like, water's out of the question. You're going to be puking everywhere. And like, there was yelling, don't get me wrong. And they would have us like toe the line, we got our bags. And I just remember the first night we're lined up into our, they assigned us to this bunk room, whatever. And we all have to toe the line, right? The drill sergeants are with the big bullhorn, this big old drill sergeant, and at first that point, your eyes are just wide open. The drill sergeant is probably smaller than me and weaker than me. At the time, he's 6'20" and 300 pounds of muscle, but just your eyes are deceiving you a bit, right? So we've got it's like, hold your bag above your head, privates. And we all got our bags above our head. And I just remember he goes, if any of you think that this is not for you, you need to say so now. And this one kid, I swear to you, like 2 people over me, he goes, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And he just puts down his bag. I'm like, oh, hell. Like, we're about to get murdered.
There's always a few of them.
There is fear in my eyes. And I'm looking across the way at this guy who he played quarterback at Dartmouth, right? Like, I can just see in him, like, he too is of a refined sort. And he's looking back at me like, oh, that guy's scared. I know something's about to go down. We're just kind of looking at each other like, all right now. But, like, tell my kids I love them. You know what I mean? Like one of those moments. Yeah. And the drill sergeant's like, okay, get it over there. We'll start your paperwork. Anyone else? All right, privates, get some sleep. Long day tomorrow. That was it. That was the end of Shark Tank. Like so weird. I come to find out they had already started deploying guys over the surge. About a weekend, the company commander called me into his office. I'm still doing the, like, what do I do? Like parade rest or attention, like for this captain type. And he's like, hey, Brent, you ran a company, right? Like, yes, sir, I did. And he's like, it's Chris, man. Just sit down. And so I'm like, so again, I'm thinking like, this is a trick. Obviously, this is a trick. Brent, be wary. But he just said, listen, man, a couple of my drills just got deployed. We're shorthanded. I'm going to give you the POI, the program of instruction here. If you just make sure that the guys are up 5:30, at the bus by 6, we'll meet you at the training ranges, and we'll go. And that's what we did. I mean, it was still pretty intense. They got an influx about 9 weeks in of new drill sergeants that made their presence known. Tell you that much right now. Did not need little helper Brent anymore. That's for darn sure at that point. But it was just this life lesson of this is a moving army. This is not like playtime. This is not the training ground. They're like literally saying you are going to go from here to soldier and then war zone within a quarter. That's what we want to be doing right now. And that was a big wake up call for me, just to understand like, oh, they are short staffed. This is a necessary thing now. This captain, by the way, he was a nice guy to me, but boy, did he hate being away from the front lines. This was his secondary command, right? He just served downrange. Now he's getting told, oh, you get a secondary command. You're so great. And it's TRADOC. And he was just heartbroken. His only happy day, literally only happy day, was Pugil Stick Day, where it was just like he was just watching violence again. And just he was laughing till he cried, like just enjoying every moment. I remember he put me in the ring against these 2 kids that maybe combined, they were brothers, signed up together, maybe combined weighed half as much as me. And he's like, Brent, you don't stop hitting them until they leave the ring. Do you understand me? And like one kid, I just broke his nose right off the bat. The other kid's just like crying, and I'm sitting on the ground. I'm yelling at him, like, just get out of the ring. And I just look over at Chris, and he's just tears, just like laughing like maniacally, just like finally this is his moment. And it was just such a weird out of body experience that, I got weirdly hurt like the last week just on some land nav event where they bring you back in, on this grand march to finish you off as whatever, you're a soldier now. Broke a rib, so I had like 3 weeks of downtime between that and officer candidate school. Did the OCS thing. That was another weird experience where they had only so many slots, and I thank God every day that I got the OCS class that I did. My company commander was an older guy who loved baseball as well, so we just got to talk a lot of baseball stuff. He taught me a lot about what the infantry was all about, told me, like totally sold me on it, just was all about it, but also hooked me up with some individuals that would then come to me and say, hey, we know you're going to be an infantry officer. Would you also like to do some weird stuff? And like, that was just like, they're speaking my grandpa's language again. I'm like, yeah, I want some weird stuff. And they're like, okay, you speak business, right? I'm like, yeah, I can do this. And so I just met with these weird dudes in suits, and they just kind of guide me through these different career paths. And it was a lot of fun. I didn't get to really talk about much at home, didn't get to say much about what I was doing there. But during that training period, I would just go off of these weird random classes and these weird random people, and then go get to play soldier for realsies at a real unit, and had the time of my life. Honestly, like just absolute blast. Got to work for General H.R. McMaster, who's like a personal hero of mine right off the bat. So as soon as I finished out of infantry, I got to be his congressional liaison at Fort Benning to continue some of my own training. But he was just an example of scholar, gentleman, war hero, soldier, and taught me a lot about life in general in the Army, which was fun. Great advice, by the way, for anyone listening out there. He just said, Brent, because of your position in life, you feel that you don't have to hold back criticism, because if we fired you, you just have a better job. I'm like, okay, yes, sir. He's like, and I think that is the right way to do it. I'm just telling you now that I've spent most of my life speaking truth to power, and it has been misery trying to get rank in this Army. And sure enough, he wrote his dissertation was a book called a Dereliction of Duty. And it was just a screw you to everyone that was a senior rater at the Pentagon from like 05 up. Because he believed in his heart that what Westmoreland did in fudging numbers was, it's wrong to lie to the American people. And he said that. And so he was a great 05. He had a Silver Star as a captain. He took on the Battle of 73 Easting. For all your history fans out there, that's General McMaster. He was a Captain McMaster back then. 8 of his armored units took down 81 Iraqi tanks. It's a huge deal.
Wow.
Just war hero, right? Silver Star for valor, with valor advice. Unreal dude. But then as soon as he started pissing people off, he was a great 05. Got passed over for 06 twice. Made 06. Got passed over for 1 star once. Was called the best 1 star in the Army by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Passed over for 2 star twice. Like just politics. Just because he's not afraid to say the right thing. And that was such a good life lesson to me. And every unit that I went to, just say the right thing. Know when, they don't listen. Know how to say it. Is also very big. I think one of the first things is his congressional liaison. He would often just like say, hey, can you go tell Colonel or Brigadier General so-and-so that this paper that they filed with me is wrong. I need them to do this. And I have this plan. And so I just constantly be relaying information, right? You're a bag boy. You just go and do. You're a lieutenant. You just do what you're told. And I remember going to this 1 star's office and saying, hey, sir, here's the plan from General Master would like you to do, blah, blah, blah. And then instead of saying something polite, like, did I make that clear? I know I rushed through a lot of that, sir. I'd be happy to clarify anything that I missed. I said, do you understand that, sir? And then I spent 8 hours in the front leaning rest where this 1 star made this, 2 soon to be 3 star boss come in and claim his lieutenant because he'd done messed up. And I just sweat for 8 hours in the front leaning rest, some office building at Fort Benning, loving every minute of it. Obviously, it made me a great man.
Yeah, it's good. Now you have that story. Otherwise, you wouldn't, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and trust me, I learned right quick how you speak truth to power matters.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you enlisted, and I guess you got up to the point of officer course, did you know the path you were going to, or you were just kind of going with the flow?
To a degree, I did. I had some conversations with some recruiting people from some special things that I knew would be of interest to me before I went in. But like all things in the Army, right? Nothing is guaranteed. And especially when you're doing joint stuff, nothing is guaranteed. It was just one of those things like, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, so be it. Things worked out well where they were able to develop me in the right ways for the right places. And then from then on, it was kind of going with the flow. I just really wanted to be wherever I was best use, best need. And at that time, I think it was a bit of, I'll call it benign narcissism, where I'm just so focused on the mission set. I think I definitely eschewed kind of that family life set, which is dangerous to do. But I think we moved 5 times in 6 years just because I was BNR'd to some new unit with some new guy that wanted me to do some new thing in some other country thing, mission set. And so that was very tough on them. And I very much appreciated them just supporting that. But for a while, it was definitely just, hey, go where needed. And it really wasn't until about 5 years in that I, for the first time, just said no to an assignment because what they were doing was not working in any way, shape, or form. And it was not something that professionally I felt would go over well, for the long-term best interest in the nation. And that was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have with a 3-star general over use sock. We just said, listen, sir, this is not what you need right now. This is not going to work. I want to go back over to where I'm best and where I'm needed, and let's do that. So It was a bit go with the flow, a bit, give and take. And every time though, like I'm dead serious, it would look so happenstantial, and perhaps that's, dudes in suits making it look that way for me. I don't know. But every unit I'd go to, I'd just look around and be like, holy cow, like I'm the dumbest person in the room. I'm the weakest person in the room. That is like such a good feeling as a soldier. Like to know, A, you've got people to look up to in a room to improve, and also B, like these dudes are legends you're around. Some of them are just, 28 years old, but they're legends. Other guys in their 50s with multiple, racks of stars and medals, and they're next level. And you just get to learn from them and hear their stories and learn your leadership style from them. And it was nothing can replicate that class. Nothing. Like the worst time I ever had under someone's command was this guy, General Carrillo, who's now 4-star, but he liked to talk to me while throwing a football. And he is probably one of the smartest men who's ever walked in the Army. Like maybe 150, 160 IQ. I don't know. I'll leave that to the psychs. But he's also known as Carrillo the Gorilla because he's gigantic. And when he throws the football, and these little mitts are like just trying to not die, that was, just asked me about strategy questions. And I'm like, yep, I'm thinking about going to the dock later, sir. This is not a normal speed. This will clear.
That's a wild story. So between that officer course and the liaison role, if there's any other kind of like stories you can share and or want to share, opening the floor for that. If not, you can carry on with that kind of liaison role.
I guess just for your listeners especially, it's good to know that I'm a big believer that just because it briefs well doesn't mean it is a good idea. And I was a part of a couple of things that they wanted to have assistance in developing units. And the best way I can put it, I guess, is for a while, the Army wanted to put dark side units at white side headquarters. And so in the Army, we have like white soft and dark soft, you want to call it whatever. It's basically like the high-end tier 1 secret stuff mixed in with the white soft components to always support it, which in theory sounds great. And what happened was they just ended up recruiting a lot of like true blue white soft dudes that are good cats and not doing a great job of explaining what living in the gray is. I had a great explanation given to me a few years in my career where I started noticing a lot of people from my church. I'm a convert to the church, so I didn't know if it was like a cultural thing. But a lot of people from my church were in these classes that I was taking for dark side stuff. And I remember asking one of the guys at this very specific school who wasn't a member of my church, I'm like, hey, I noticed when we finally got church privileges and we could go out on Sundays to church, a lot of the instructors and a lot of my fellow students were of that ilk. And he's like, yeah, because what we're going to do is you're going to go in the gray. It's fog. There's white and there's black. We want you to, if you have to come out of the gray, go to the white. But when you're in the gray, you're lost. Your church tends to develop people that when they get lost, they know to go to the white. It is tempting when you're in the gray to just go to the black. There's money in the black. There's people in the black that you want to hang around. It's like your ability to get out of there matters. Like, because I always thought, I guess if they served a mission, for 2 years, they've got the language and the culture of whatever they're going into. He was like, yeah, that's nice. That's adorable. My mom did some stuff with the FBI, and she said, yeah, it's great to go to BYU because they can just, she called like fish in a barrel, right? You can just go to them to recruit for the FBI. Like, do you want to serve something bigger than yourself? Can you pass a drug test? Like, oh yeah, mission, sign them right up. But that to me became very true because I watched many a good soldier that was a great white soft soldier come into the gray a little bit more. And it just got way too tempting. And it was tough to watch, the classic drug, sex, and rock and roll take hold of their lifestyle and just devastate these men and their families. Very tough to see that happen. And eventually it got to the point where we started pulling back those programs and just thinking through a little bit more cautiously that while in theory this is a great thing to have more direct, task force to task force talk, it's probably best that, the smart kids in the room, dudes a lot smarter than me, the psychiatrists and psychologists that understand the formation of those grand teams, both white and dark, just kind of have more of the lead in saying who goes where. Because just having a bunch of dudes in the room say, yeah, he looks great on paper, doesn't mean that morally he's going to be who he needs to be after, needing to come in from the cold. So it's a very, very interesting thing to watch that happen. So just as you're building a company, we've been very intentional about that at BotBuilt too. We want to know that this person is the right person. We have everyone here evaluated before they come in with a shrink that they can talk to, not for me to get their medical records. It's between them and the shrink. And that shrink will just tell them like, hey, yeah, I think you're a good fit for BotBuilt, or hey, I don't think you are, and here's why. Here's some things you might want to work on. And those that do come on, they love it because they've got all this data about themselves, which again is a superpower. and those that don't know a little bit more about what's a good fit for them. And to me, that's just so important. That little ounce of prevention with the pound of cure thing comes into play.
Yeah, really interesting. I kind of attribute what you're saying to having like a core value system outside of anything else, i.e. religion,
Yep.
and having that, instilled
That's all
and
it is.
being able to fall
And to
back
be
on it.
blunt, like 2006 to 2012, a lot of dudes in soft especially got addicted to becoming killing machines because that's what the mission dictated.
Yeah.
Even like SF cats, I love SF, love the mission of SF. They're freaking awesome heroes to me. But their mission set is like training up indigenous forces to go fight for the, either themselves or the interests of the U.S. And it just became like if you want the dollars, you've got to become like the Rangers and ST6 and just become great at putting two here. And that's fine, but that's not the mission set. And then you just get this mindset of like, when's my next rotation? When's my next door I'm going to hit? And, you lose sight of that. But if you have those core values in place, you can come back in from that and say, okay, actually, no, I need to go focus on my language skills, go focus on my cultural skills, make sure that I'm training these people here to do what we need them to do and not just be the coolest guy in the room that can hit any target.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a very interesting thing to think back on, psychologically speaking, right? Like a theory of warfare, theory of training people, culture, value systems. Yeah.
And by the way, that's very easy for me to say because like, your viewers probably can't see it. I'm not like some physical specimen, right? Like in the Army, my fighting weight's like 205. That's great. I'm not the fastest cat in the room. I'm not the dude I'm not going to be on any like sniper team anytime soon, right? I'm not that cat, and so I was never tempted to become that cat. But the dudes that were good at that sort of thing got tempted into that sort of a lifestyle, and just kind of unfortunately tempted away from their core mission.
I mean, even I always find that point to be interesting because I got for me prior to serving, I got obsessed with being able to do whatever physical dynamic existed, and I got really good at that. But then I quickly also learned that it didn't matter whatsoever. It's very, very easy to break someone down physically when you're not a civilian anymore, right? And you don't control controllables, you don't control anything. So for whatever it's worth, I think your psychological capability is way more important than your perceived physical capability. Yeah,
100%. Any elite unit on Earth is really breaking you down physically so they can get down to the root of what your mental status is, right? Whether it's Yamas or it's a tier 1 unit here, it's going to be like, are you going to crack? Like, are you going to be a good dude at the end of the day? Like that's the important stuff. If you're going to be a good dude at the end of the day, heck yeah. If you don't have enough good dude cred, when your physical stuff starts breaking down, when you're on day 3 of a mission that was supposed to be 12 hours and you haven't had a snack and you're getting a little cranky, you're going to lose your freaking cool on your men, or you're going to be the right man.
Exactly. So this liaison role, kind of going back to where I paused. How did you get involved with that? And like, I guess, what was your relationship? It sounds like your relationship was kind of like military to political.
Yeah. So I had done some consulting for congressional races, and my mom she did lobbying in the 90s. So like she took a little pause from being an advertiser and PR. She's a PR guru, right? So she ran this company for years, sold it off in 93. And then during the Clinton administration, she became a Second Amendment lobbyist. She loves the right to bear arms. She's of Tennessean and Texan roots, right? I think it's by law she has to be in favor of that stuff, I guess. She couldn't help it. But for her, especially, she and my father got divorced, and so now she's a single mother, and she wanted to have this like sense of protection and self-worth and blah, blah, blah. And so she wanted to train other women on how to shoot, because my mom is such a better shot than me. It's embarrassing. Like she'll awesome. Put rounds down range, bro. Like she doesn't play around. So, and I stand by that. She started doing lobbying. I just fell in love with the lobbying set. Like I thought it was so amazing that like it gets a bad rap for all the right reasons, right? There's certainly corruption in lobbying. There's certainly, I'm sure I've fought in some conflict somewhere because someone got bribed. I don't doubt that at all, right? Like if I'm just being honest, but it serves a purpose. So I just got to get to know these individuals, these senators and representatives, and on their terms. They're just human beings, right? That have been given this unwieldy amount of power, that have to also play these power games and be subjected to other rules themselves. I love the kind of chessboard mentality of it. And so at the point I was waiting to go back to another school for the Army, and it's like, I guess it's kind of a fun story for me anyway. I forget what they called it. Maybe it's Blackbird status or something, like where I'm waiting on a school. So I'm like put in an officer position at Fort Benning waiting for this. And I was the XO over this airborne school thing. So I was like over at airborne school, just like, doing doing first lieutenant XO nonsense, right? Whatever it is, you're scribbling down crap and taking notes and saying yes sir to whoever comes in the room that definitely outranks you, right? No matter what. And all of a sudden one day, the commanding general of Fort Benning came into my office, and his name was General Michael Brown, and he's just like this huge tall dude. He played basketball at Army, just tall, what every general is, right? Tall, good looking, well spoken, great politician. He went on to get 4 stars, right? At that time, he's a 2-star. And he's pulling me aside, and he's like, Brent, can I buy you lunch? And my battalion and brigade commander are like behind him in the hallway thinking like, did Brent like get a super DUI? Like what, why is this dude on my footprint without telling me what is happening? And he just took me to lunch and he said, hey man, so you worked in politics a little, right? I'm like, yeah, I help run campaigns, nothing major. It's like, but you've been on the Hill. I'm like, yes. It's like, okay, so the Congressional Liaison of Fort Benning is about to retire, and I could just hire someone, but I'm about to change over command to this new guy coming in, HR McMaster. And I don't want to set him up for failure in that department, because once you hire that position, it's like an SES level position, that person can stay there until they die if they wanted to. And I'd rather have him choose the person he's going to have to work with for 2 to 3 years. So if you could just fill the role, and I'm a lieutenant, right? I have no idea what he's even talking about. I'm like, okay, like, sure, I'm waiting on a school, sir. And he's just like, okay, what schools? And I just told him a couple of them. He's like, okay, well, we'll still make sure that department gets their stuff in. Don't worry about that. And you can do that part-time too. He's just kind of spouting stuff off just to sell it, right? He's buying me a Whopper, like the Burger King in Building 4, just like whatever. It's like, yeah, I think you'll really like it. And so it just turned into this thing where I would be this, guy who would fill out reports. I would report back to DC, report back to Congress people. And the main crux of the role was just the Senate and the House always want to know what's happening on Army bases. And civilians can complain or file a grievance to their congressperson about what's happening there. This was a time when, because the surge was, about to kick off and training was getting a little more realistic than people were used to. And some civilians started to complain. We had some deaths, like I'm not going to lie, in my class and in other classes around me. We had several deaths that took place in infantry training. And I think to all of us that were in it, we just were like, well, yeah, this is dangerous stuff. Like, you're going to fall out of a helicopter sometimes. You're going to get dehydrated and die of a heat cat thing. It happens. But to the civilian world, it's scary, and it's their kid, right? If your kid goes to the Army fine, comes back in a bag, you're going to ask questions. And so I would just have to do investigations, file these reports, sometimes just go up there and make the senators feel a little better about themselves and just fill them in on the situation. And General McMaster, to his credit, was just like, hey, this is a freaking, he's an older guy, sure, but this is a lieutenant. So I wanted to make sure that this lieutenant, even though he's going to this weird little career path he's niched out for himself somehow, we call it drug deals in the Army, right? So he's got some kind of drug deal going on with these other little guys in suits. So I want to make sure that he's trained up. And McMaster would take time like every freaking day. And it made me such a better human being, quite frankly. Like the amount of care he put into my professional development, human development, really was amazing. And I was in every Saturday. Obviously, it's just kind of a nonstop job. You're always filling reports out. Congress people can bloviate, and so you have to bloviate back to them half the time. And it's a grind. It was a grind on my family, but he would come in on Saturdays. I remember one time he gave me a case of beer, just to say thank you for doing something for his family to help out, kind of, because he had a great aide de camp. He's like this long tabber who was freaking out of central casting for long tabbers, right? Special forces dude, great hair. His beret was always perfectly cropped. But whenever his dude was doing other tasks, I would fill in on the bag. I guess I had done something cool. So he brought me this case of beer, and then his Secretary of General Staff told him one day, he's like, sir, Brent's a Mormon. He doesn't drink beer. McMaster felt terrible, so he came up to me on a Saturday. It's a little off-putting because this dude is a freaking war hero to me. And he comes up and he's in a yellow sweater, just in his civilian clothes, just bipping and bopping around the office while I'm sitting there typing up a report. And he's like, hey, Brent, wife and I felt so bad about the beer thing. I'm like, sir, I am a hero to all of my sergeants now, because I had 7 staff that worked in my office. I'm like, I gave them some of the most expensive beer they've ever had in their life. You don't even worry about it. Okay, well, I still feel bad. So wife and I took a cooking class, and we made you some cake pops for you and the kids. I was like, this is a freaking 3-star,
nice.
Just rugged tanker. And by the way, as an infantryman, I know I'm supposed to mock tankers, and I will. And I will stand by every time I mock tankers, because they eat a lot of donuts. But this dude taught me, when he put me in a tank one day just to show me what it's like. as an infantryman, like, yeah, you're on your feet, but that means you can run like hell if stuff gets real.
Yeah.
Your tank runs out of glass, or like you break a track. To see another turret turning towards you was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life, like bar none. And so he made me appreciate it. But just the fact that he would take this time, he and his wife took a baking class. They could make me these cake, and my girls loved it. But I was just amazed that this dude could be a war hero and like take the time out for some dumb lieutenant who's filling in for some high level position just because he uses words good. You know what I mean? Just to put that in, that was leadership, man. Like that was unreal. So like the job itself was kind of weird. Just a lot of like, yes, Senator, I'm sorry, Senator, we'll do better, Senator, and moving on with life, right? But really the job was learning from a true leader within the Army ranks and later the NSA ranks of what just being a man meant in the Army. Like you look out after everyone that's underneath you. Every call you have to make after a bad deployment to those families is real. Every time that you have to say, hey, how's it going? You better freaking mean it, not just being saying some nonsensical thing. And it got to the point where I'd, later in my career, I'd get on my captains right quick if I saw them not caring about their men or just doing the tertiary, especially the lieutenants, because they think because they were abused, they should abuse their lieutenants. Like, hell no. That kid might come home in a bag. Like, you sure as hell know what his family does. Like, you don't talk to him about getting here at 04:30 so he can fill out paperwork if you're not there. Like, you do it with your men or you don't do it at all. And it was that was all from McMaster. Like, that dude was just, I feel disrespectful just being like, that dude, that's just the way I talk. Sorry, it's all that West Coast nonsense. But, like, he was just a good human being and told me, like, good human beings can make it. Even, like, General Brown was a great guy, too, by the way. He had a great line. One kid had failed out of Ranger school, but he was still, like, this super soldier guy. And General Brown, infantryman without a Ranger tab, at the time he was a 2-star, just looks at us and goes, hey, guys, just remember, if you don't get your Ranger tab, the highest you'll probably make is 2-star. Like, just that, like, I know it's a big deal now, Lieutenant. Just ease up. We'll send you back when you're healed. Just be okay with it. You know what I mean? It's cool to see that humility.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an awesome story. I love hearing the kind of how you got there and kind of how you keep getting plugged into different places. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it definitely felt like I was in the Matrix half the time. Just someone was writing some quality code for me. I appreciated it.
Kind of sounds like it. Yeah. So, all right. So you do that rotation. It sounds like you then go to this handful of schools. What happens next?
So next, I just tried to hop on as many different like cool guy tasks as I could, basically. And I realized very quickly, until a lot of people, I just had a very hard discussion with an Army leader because I thought that I was on trajectory to do this very specific thing that was going to be like cool guy stuff, right? And I was very excited about this. I'm like, this is because my brother's so much taller than me. Even my dad and his wife have a little brother who's like 20 now. He's a sophomore. He plays like D1 baseball. He's bigger than me in every way. By the way, I was in 7th group for a while. They had a picture off the internet of my little brother wearing a 7th group shirt that I'd given him. And then they had a picture of me doing squats and him doing squats from the internet. And they go, who wore it better? And the implication was my little brother's over there like 15 doing like split squats at 420 or whatever it was. It's like, it's nothing. So like, I thought like, this is my, like, hell yeah, I'm going to be a freaking like operator, just going after it. And this guy just pulled me aside. He's like, Brent, I need you over here. It's in the nerdery. You're going to be talking to dudes. You're going to be with these guys. But you're going to be the dude that just goes and sits down with the locals. And you're going to just talk to them because you get in their heads. And then you're going to extract things for us. You're going to bring it back. And it was just one of those moments where I think, looking back, I'm like, wow, this was the honor of a lifetime that I got to do these weird mission sets. And it was all under the guise of like, you're just always like attached to and tasked with and blah, blah, blah. And the guys that they put me in rooms with are just, I called them my small shaped bears, right? These are just like freaking beast mode dudes that it's laughable to think that I thought like, oh yeah, I'm just like you. Like, no, you played in the NFL for 2 years. Now you're here. Like, no, we're not the same, Brent. Like that's what you should have been saying. Like, but it was one of those things where I just got to go to some weird schools, go to some interesting events, and then just got to work at, I think on my LinkedIn page, people are like, what'd you do in the Army? So I was assistant to the regional manager. And that's exactly what I did. I was brought in every time they just needed someone to talk to some big guy who makes big decisions and give him some of my little piece of the world, and then just be effective also at like some nerd nonsense. And so I did stuff in every part of the little infantry there, part of SF, and some of the soft units I was part of was kind of cool. Did some 3-letter nonsense. I got to be like a finance officer for a little while in the Army, which is like the world's worst job on earth. But just doing that as, part of the matrix, so to speak, to make sure I got to go and do the other things was very important to me. So you do your bit. And then you get to see at the end of the day, most soldiers, no matter what position, what unit they're part of, and I was for like a whole year in a regular conventional unit even, most soldiers are just trying their best to be the best they can for, the person to the left and the right. And that's just kind of a noble thing. It's fun to see that. You don't always get to appreciate that, I think, looking back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can certainly appreciate where, especially at the time, it would throw you off, if you're in the headspace mindset of like door kicker, infantry, just grunt work, whatever it is that is physically demanding. And then all of a sudden you're asked to do, whatever, not that. It's kind of devastating.
It can be. And then you realize like, wow, okay, this is going to be just a different adventure. I still got to do a lot of the weird stuff, the X stuff, the stuff that makes for the cool stories down the line. Whenever it's, whenever I'm allowed to talk about that stuff, it was fun. But then I also realized like how safe I felt around the guys that I was around. Like so many of the guys that I went to like infantry, the infantry course with, or like infantry officer school with, they came back in coffins, and they were part of conventional forces. And it was just so interesting to see, we lost soldiers in SOF, but like it was rare. And it was usually worst case scenario type stuff. And it was always to the point where, I think my parents, especially my dad, didn't really fully understand the Army thing. Cause he's like, Brent, you're smart. He didn't say this. These are not his words, but it came off as like, we're rich and white, right? Like, what are you doing here, buddy? Like, what? Is this like a phase? Like, what's happening here? But at the end of the day, when I get to go out with these guys on mission, I've never felt so safe, because like these guys are so well trained. They would take me into their training rooms with them, and they took me from an average shooter to a freaking great shooter. CQB was not a problem for me. Like it became this like natural pacing. I remember just going into one set of meetings for a couple of months just with a machete and a handgun, because the dudes around me were so armed to the teeth that they just wanted me to play the crazy guy. And that's what I did. Yeah. I was always just shave my neck, right, with my machete in conversation with people and locals. And they were just like, oh my gosh, this person's a freaking crazy person. Like they think our religion's weird. Like, what the hell is Mormon? You know what I mean? Like, what is this nonsense? But it's because the dudes, all around me, they drop anyone. Like, it's just, it was, I think that the people that I talk to that really serve in the Army, especially the conventional Army, when they talk about their service, I am the one saying, thank you for your service. Because they're like, well, we all serve. I'm like, yeah, but did I? Cause I felt like I was playing dress up every day. Like it was just the best experience of my life. I was around the coolest people on earth, the most well-trained, the most well-funded, like coolest units on God's green earth. That's not real service. The kids that were, when I had to fly commercial out of Bagram and, got out of my Land Cruiser and I was up armored, and I'm just seeing like this line of kids from the 101st, like waiting for their customs check of bags. I'm like, wait, you have to go through customs? They're like, don't worry, Brent, you don't. It's like, okay, good. I don't want to have to do that. And like, what the hell? That's not real life. You know what I mean? Like that's a fantasy. And I'm so appreciative of my country for giving me the opportunity to live that fantasy life, and then to get to watch what real Army work was like. I still wear the name of the dude that I went to infantry school with, Jonan Russell. He's from Arizona as well. So we're both from Arizona. He was like the coolest cat in infantry school. Like nothing fazed him. He just had this like cool little accent he would put on. He just like, I say hua. And he would just like lean into it. Anytime they would just make us go through the sucks, like, I say hua. And he was actually defending a position that I was in. And I didn't know, because he's our conventional source, right? He's our conventional perimeter. And he got blown up by a dude on an IED donkey. And he lost his specialist. And I didn't find out till 2 days later. Like that's the way we deployed. Like someone came in. Oh, by the way, the names that security detail from 3ID are out. And my wife had actually just called me on the sat phone. It was just like, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm like, sorry about what? As I'm opening the list, I'm like, holy cow, Jonan Russell. God bless him. Like broke my freaking heart. But those are the dudes that freaking got after it. Those are the dudes that just did what was asked, no matter what the circumstance. And that's something you just can't replicate in real life. They're amazing men. Yeah,
well said. Very well said. So does this kind of come to the conclusion of your service? Any other kind of gaps to fill?
No, essentially at that point I had done this program. I told the USASOC commander and everyone underneath him, like they had me meet with like literally everyone to make sure I was serious. They had wanted me for this specific program that, sure, eventually it's the thing, like basically it was a mess. They weren't going to stand it up properly. I wasn't the man to lead it. And I was at that point so exhausted by these people that just were putting, I think, lackluster requirements on a unit that needed to be tier one, that it was going to be devastating effects. And so I just had the hard conversation. He said, okay. And so I wanted to have another position over at a special unit. And so he said, okay, before we do that, we're going to have you go back out to the force just to check a box for promotion time. Then you can come back in. While I was checking that box, it was a fun life, but unfortunately I had 2 bad parachute crashes in a row. And so one was just high winds. They got like 5 of us out the door, and it was this like freaking awesome general was in the jump too. And I think they just wanted to get him out because in airborne ops, there's a communication that happens between the ranking official and the jump master, and then of course the poor Air Force cap that's reporting winds. And they reported like high breeze, and the sergeant major kind of stared him down like, we're getting out the door. And so finally I just see this kid go, and like, it's not 2, you know what I mean? So we get out the door, we're whipping. General hits hard, he breaks something. This colonel broke his femur into his hip, and I just got dragged for like, I don't know, 150 meters, knocked unconscious, all hell. Doctor says, hey, don't jump again for a little while. We want to check you out. But I forgot that because I rung my bell. And then the next week, just had a kid steal my air, basically. Like 30 feet to go. Kid just undercut it, you know, full dress, whatever. I cratered, just chute collapsed, cratered. It was only like a 30-foot drop, but it was enough to like break some vertebrae up here, broke some vertebrae down my lower back. And at that point, before they did some neural surgeries to repair some of the vertebrae and make sure there's no severing of the spine or spinal column, I should say, or cord, they discovered that I had epilepsy. And then they discovered from a while back that there had been some explosions that I didn't remember at all from downrange. And they said it was in my file. It was like the classic, like my medical evac got botched, I guess. I don't even know how this happens, but someone was supposed to say to someone else, hey, this happened. You need to take him to this hospital. But instead, I just thought everything was normal. I'd already extended my deployment twice. So I was like, I guess it's time to go home. What are you going to do? And they just miscommunicated. And so I just went back to the office that following Monday. You know, wife and kids were great to see me, but no one knew what was actually happening. And then I would just lose time from time to time. I would occasionally, you know, pass out in the gym. And I just thought I was overexerting myself, but really I was having seizures. And so by that point, they discovered it. It's 2018, I guess. They just said, hey, man, it's time to hang it up. Like, we're retiring you out. Like, thanks for your service. And I just took a job basically doing consulting work over still at Fort Bragg and Joint Special Operations Command. So I got to kind of stay at the flagpole where I loved. But, you know, being a civilian there is not, it is definitely not the same. Like, you're watching your dudes do all the cool stuff. Like, all right, I'll file the paperwork, guys. Like, great work. Way to be. All right, we took down ISIS. Hooray. Form 70 you know, like, just, it didn't feel the same. And that's when my now business partner, Barrett Ames, is actually married to my cousin. I've known him for years. He would take my daughters on little tours of his robot lab over at Duke. He struck while the iron was hot. He's like, how's JSOC going? I'm like, well, you know, I'm wearing business casual. Like, not really the same, but I'm serving my country. And he's like, I've got an idea we should talk about. And that's when he brought up BotBuilt to me. And I was like, all right, let's freaking roll, brother. Like, this makes sense.
So before we roll into BotBuilt, is there like any way you would have realized the epilepsy scenario if it wasn't for, I guess, just the parachute issue that came up, which brought up your medical records, which brought up this scenario?
My wife definitely noticed I was angry a lot, and like the lost time thing would start to become more of a point of conflict, I guess, in my relationships with people. Just, you know, they would say things I'm like, that's not real. And, you know, just started losing my mind a little bit. I wasn't sleeping well, just exhausted all the time where I wasn't before. And you just chalk it up to Army things, right? Like, oh, of course I'm tired.
Sure.
You know, whatever it is, 2 a.m. jump, you know, blah, 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 or mission training this. I do know of one instance where I had an incident, like a full, I guess, a grand mal seizure, they're called, in the gym that I was working out in. And there happened to be a doc there who recognized it, like had me come to. I, you know, made a mess of myself, and he's just like, hey, bro, it happens. You got to get checked out like right quick. But because I'm both an idiot and an Army man, I just was like, that's great advice, doc, that I am not going to listen to. So, because I think you kind of come to grips with like all these rationalizations, right? Like, what if that was a one-off? And, you know, you will ruin your, like, epilepsy is this no-go zone in the Army. The minute you have it, you have to be seizure free for 5 years before they'll put you back in uniform.
Yeah, wow.
And being later stage, I was kind of like, well, also doctors are wrong a lot. And I just start, thinking through, like, he's just guessing. Medicine is just guessing. So it was probably just too much weight on the bar. My bad, and you go on. So yes, they probably would have discovered it. But truth be told, looking back, obviously now I feel like the neck breakage stuff was a blessing, because I wouldn't have been able to really understand how bad it was. I wouldn't have been honest with my wife and family about how bad it was, and dealt with things the way I should have. And now, been seizure free for at least about 5 years, and it's been awesome to just have the right medicine, great docs, and a good life, because they were able to discover, like, hey man, you got your bell rung one too many times, like, those blasts are real, let's fix it. Just nothing like that to really slow you down, stop you, and force you out.
No, I'm glad to hear that these things are resolved now. All of what you were saying, it was immediately my reaction was thinking, like, how I would perceive it is like, oh, okay, well, I'm in service, so things are going to go wrong and it's going to hurt and whatever, just keep going forward. So that's why I was really
right side of the grass. So they could be like, well, you have cancer. I'm like, well, I'm not dead yet, so let's keep fighting. You know what I mean? Like, if you just took 5 minutes, Brent, we could heal you. Like, that's 5 minutes we don't really have right now. So it's a mentality, man. It's just it's brainwashing at its finest. So I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So you're at the end of your service because of this. You're doing that consulting work. I'm curious what, I guess, the out processing, really shifting to civilian life is like on the personal psychological level, and then we'll roll into kind of business side.
Yeah, I'd be a liar to say if it wasn't just a struggle in general psychologically. There were days where it was just pure rage, and you don't really recognize it as rage, or you don't recognize it as jealousy, I think is the term I'm looking for here. Driving into Fort Bragg from Pinehurst is an interesting thing. So you take these different routes, but all of them are through these gigantic training areas. And so you could be driving into work or driving from work, and just a couple of Chinooks and a couple of Apaches and a couple of Blackhawks just fly over you with dudes' legs hanging out. You're just like, golly, like, it just hits, right? You're this nostalgia moment, and it's this jealousy moment, and it's this, and it's easy, by the way, very easy. And I don't think we acknowledge it enough to go down the whole, like, why me, woe is me, little pity party. And I definitely did that a lot, probably much to my wife's chagrin, where I'd just be like, if only. And because I'm raised by parents that taught me to say the right things, you kind of like talk yourself out of it, like, I shouldn't think that way. I should be grateful to be alive, blah, blah, blah. But it just kind of residually hits. And so it took a while of me finally taking the time, meeting with professionals, walking through it all, and just kind of working through that, pure unadulterated rage at myself, rage at the situation, rage at whatever it is, and turning it into, like, okay, how can I recognize those moments? How can I say that sucked, but life is so great? Because life is freaking beautiful. And I think that because my mindset has always been, when you're in something, you're freaking in it. Like, the Army was a great thoroughfare for it, but, like, honestly, when I was a teenager, I would have taken a bullet for my band, right? Like, when I was running a company, I would have taken a bullet for that company. Like, that's just in my blood. That's what Wadases and Smiths do. We run into the fire, and we're willing to die for whatever cause, or else it's not worth our time. Like, that's my very low bar. Is it worth dying for? If not, don't waste my time. Right? So, like, at that point, then you've got the Army inculcating itself into you of, like, not only is this worth dying for, and, like, you probably will. Like, it's just like this, this is the culmination of my life's purpose. And to have that gone is just this, like, oh crap. Now what do I do? You just have to learn to work through that. And also, I've learned to just kind of dial that little thing down a bit. Like, hey, what if you just were okay with being alive? You know what I mean? Like, if you can start there. I haven't gotten there yet, I'm going to be honest with you, but, like, I've become more okay with just, like, okay, just, it's not always at 11. It's not always, or you don't have to be on tier 1's ass. You don't have to be on, like, it doesn't have to be war to be important. And that's been kind of a growth opportunity for me in my older years, to just, all right, I'm still learning it. It's not always easy. It's just going to take some time to kind of muscle through it, but it's a task to be had. And I've got great docs that I talk with. I've got great friends I talk with, great leaders that I talk with, and they're great at kind of walking me through that. And by the way, just from my personal experience, nothing is better than when talking to dudes who's like, my career was fun and exciting and amazing. But when you talk to dudes who their career was like, every freaking thing was a freaking hit. Like, they were unbelievable. These are the dudes who have buildings named after them when they're dead, right? You talk to them and they're cool with being out. Like, you're like, you have no excuse, Brent. Like, that's freaking
Sure.
hero. And he's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like, yep,
Yeah.
you're not on mission right now, buddy. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, so
Yeah.
it's very helpful to say, hear their perspective. And they're like, oh, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's, to me, that's getting stuck in your own head versus allowing someone to help you get out of being stuck in your own head, kind of a thing.
Yes.
Hindsight now, right? What kind of advice would you give your younger self on that transition period?
Oh, man. I don't know. That's a tough call. That's a good question. Well, not to be like too weird about it, and maybe this is where, like, Brent, you probably shouldn't have read too many psychology books, but like, do I want to give my prior self advice? Because like the fire that you have to walk through, my wife would probably say, "Oh, I've got some," right? Like, she's like, "No, we should just fix him, and then I have an easier life." But like the fire I had to walk through mentally,
Sure.
to like just put that behind me was so worth the anguish, and is still worth the anguish. Like, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I guess the advice I'd give is just like, maybe I'd give myself a hug when he needed a hug, and maybe I'd just say, suck it up when he was just being a little whiny brat that he wasn't out there with the guys, man. Just say, hey, man, life sucks, doesn't it? It's great. You're alive. Be thankful. Shut up. But then just let myself go through that crucible. So I think it's sometimes the experience is what it's all about.
Yeah, well said. And, I wouldn't diminish that advice. I think that is very good advice. Kind of similar to what I will frequently say to myself when I hear myself whine, which is, in a less nice way, a shut up kind of a thing.
You fought in a much harder surface than I did. So yes, it shouldn't be as nice. Darn right. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So all right, you finish service. Your business partner is essentially poaching you from Fort Bragg, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through that process. Walk us through, I guess that brings you to today, right?
Yeah. It's he always, Barrett Ames is his name, Dr. Ames, as I like to call him, because he is. He is just a freaking genius, but thankfully someone like broke him as a child to the point where he doesn't just want to be like an academic roboticist, and he gets like money drives the research. So it's not like he just was looking for a lab partner. He wants someone to fund his cool ideas. He's always found ways to like make robots applicable. And so he had a storied career at Cornell as his undergrad, and then worked at NASA. He got to work on like International Space Station robotics. So he put up a couple of humanoids there, like Valkyrie and Robonaut 2. He did all these amazing things, and he was really working on autonomy and flexibility in robotics. And I kind of think that sounds a little like, well, duh, but so much of robotics is just repetition, right? Robot is a Czech word for slave. So it's just about having something do the same thing over and over and over again. It's programmable, right? We've had robotics for decades in every country, doing things from building our cars to, you name it. And he really wanted to create something, a system basically, that would allow us to take robotics from where it is and make it much more interface with the basic human need, and do something on the fly, like have a task that's in front of it and it has to accomplish this task now with whole new sets of data, whole new sets of materials, and just move. And that is a very complex thing. So when he did his dissertation, he really worked hard on creating these IK stacks, these math stacks that would help the robot say, I need to do this, and whether it's motion planning, like you and me, I want to pick up my water bottle. I know what I'm doing. My hand just reaches for it. I don't really need to look at it, and I go. My hand and arm are avoiding all these things on my desk in front of me, right? Naturally. We're doing that naturally. A robot needs to be told that. It has all these directions it can go. And if you've got this type of joint, now it has all these options. And so when Barrett said, I really want to get into construction robotics, what that was coming from for him was while he was teaching over at Duke, had bought a fixer-upper. And he's got a young family at this point. He now has 4 kids. I think he just had 2 at the time. And he's like, I'll do math all day, and then I'll come home and I'll get to relax, unwind by doing this. But there's still things you need a professional for, right? So you need to have like an electrician to come out and do his certified thing for electricity. When he wanted help finding framers, getting help on a construction project, there was no labor to be found. The labor was outlandishly expensive. He realized every tradesman was making more than he was as a PhD over at Duke, which is like a weird thing for me to say out loud, but they're making so much money. And our generation, by the way, mine especially, was the one that all of our parents said, hey, your grandparents came from nothing and built this up. We all went to grad school. You sure as hell better go to grad school, better be a good school, or else you're nothing. And now my dad and I kind of laugh, like, I went to Georgetown and I pay my plumber $375 an hour. Like, who's the idiot, right? So Barrett sees all this and he's just like, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. So we just started talking about what the problems are. We started talking with just hundreds, if not thousands of potential customers, interaction points, builders, developers, GCs, laborers on the job site. What's their main problem and pain point? And from that, we developed this need to kind of augment labor the same way the nail gun augments the hammer for the laborer. We could come up with a way that allows AI and automation interface. And so we created kind of two split things. We started researching the company and then built up a software system that would help builders and developers where they are. Most of them have like PDF blueprints, right? That's what you have for every house. And they're garbage. They're not really an engineered design document. They're just kind of a how I think the home will look eventually framing model. And we developed the system, and it's been a few years in now that it's got to the point where in a few seconds, it takes this two-dimensional image that we OCR in. It's labeled everything. It knows the dimensions, knows the lines, knows the door openings, the window openings, and it creates a three-dimensional model as if you built it in this three-dimensional environment of every piece of framing that goes in that part of the roof, the floor, etc. We're starting to build onto that, by the way, nowadays with, what the flooring material is, your cabinets, all the other, the accoutrement of building the house. But just for the framing alone, that's a huge deal. And that's called a takeoff, basically. It's all the lumber, every cut, every nail, and all the pricing associated with it. We could just have that in minutes, right? And it's just delivered to whoever that is. And then we created a physical AI net to start telling the robots, hey, divide this home into panels, because wall panels are the fastest way to frame a home right now. It doesn't require the huge trucking requirement that like volumetric modular does. They're flat pack panels. You can fit a whole home on a 35-foot trailer. It can be towed by a Dodge Ram 2500, right? Take that thing to the job site. You can frame a whole house in a couple of hours. But to the robots, first they have to most efficiently build that panel design. Right. And we put in parameters based on local code that we just scrape in. And so in a few minutes, the robots are like, oh, well, here's a book of panels for you. It shows every panel the home's going to need, how it's built, where it would go in the framing design. And then we just tell the robots on the floor, build panel 17. And from there, we did a lot of mechanical engineering work where we're building up tooling systems that will have cameras on them. And so now we've got these big, gigantic industrial robotic arms that are very, off-the-shelf robotics. We literally buy them on eBay. All of your viewers can go to eBay right now and look up industrial robot arms. The ones we've got in the facility here at Durham actually came out of two different facilities, but the most recent is from the Spartanburg, South Carolina BMW plant. Once those robots are at 0.2 millimeters of precision, they're dead to BMW. Classic Germans, even in America, they're like, no, this would not work. And so we take the robot arm, buy it for a tenth of the cost, put on our custom tooling, use computer vision and laser systems, and suddenly those robots can work with organic, off-the-shelf, stud-grade lumber, which is garbage lumber, and build it exactly to the squares. Your framing package is marked. It's like IKEA for homes without all the divorce, right? Like it's just three dudes. Panel 1 goes panel 2. Panel 2 goes panel 3. It's just putting it together, nailing on job site. A few hours, your home is done. And it's just such a big deal because for these framers especially, they're just trying to put food on the table. It's an incredibly dangerous and arduous job. It takes days, if not weeks, for some of these teams to get everything done. And it's a lot of cutting, a lot of measuring, a lot of recutting, a lot of reordering. You're 10 times more likely to die building a home in America than you ever were in Afghanistan with me and my buddies. Like we would lose on average 35 people at the height of the war. We lose 350 people building in America. That's the most unsatisfactory stat. Yeah, right?
Insane stat. I did not know that. That is crazy.
That's a moral imperative to me, like an absolute moral imperative that we improve that life. And so panels just makes it that much safer for these dudes. Instead of having 8 dudes framing, you can have 3 people just putting together quick. And then you're moving on to the other trades, getting things done quickly. And that reduces cost because you're not paying all this interest on the land. It's a home that is much more precise because it's done with exact robotic precision. And we're not wasting all that lumber. Our average customers like spending an extra 20 to 40% on lumber because they don't know. They're guessing. Our robots don't guess. They know exactly what they need. We buy exactly what they need. They cut exactly what they need and they move. Like, it's that simple.
So what would be a reason someone who's building a home, whether it's an individual with a local GC or a national builder, why would they not use BotBuild or something similar?
A few reasons they wouldn't, I guess. One is we're still relatively new to the game, and we're just basically in North Carolina. We've built as far south as like Arkansas, a few states to the north, right? But we're limited in geography. We're also limited in size. We're still a relatively new company. Haven't built out a mega facility yet. We've got about 2,000 homes on back order, so a lot of people do want to build with us. It just takes time because we're always iterating and testing new stuff, and so we just tell them like, "Hey, we're going to get to you when we get to you." But the people that I guess wouldn't want to use it basically just because we're not everywhere yet. The norm is becoming that AI will enable so much more, not just in robotics, but in construction in general. And as we start to expand now that we're finally ready to start expanding our brand, both in having other facilities that want to lease our robotic systems and put them in their own component factories, their own lumber yards, and also now building supply companies and builders themselves are now buying our software rights so they can use our software system. They know what they're actually using on the job site. I know for a fact that BotBuilt will become ubiquitous as the robotics company that people use, the same way that the nail gun is ubiquitous on the job site. But that's just going to take some time and some more development. The robots are there. The team is there. We just need to start building it up and start moving it out now that we've got a product that we feel comfortable releasing to the world. I will say this, by the way, both Barrett and I are very convicted in the fact that if you release a robot into the wild, right, you give someone else the right to use your robot, that sure as heck better work. And roboticists have a tendency to make these flashy, cool guy videos that aren't real. And that kind of drives us nuts. I was literally told we did Y Combinator in winter of 21. And after Y Combinator, you do demo day, right? And all these VCs watch your demo day. And we had all these homes on back order. So they're like, oh my gosh, this is a great business. But we're telling them hey, it's going to take some time to build the tech to where it's licensable, blah, blah, blah. And one of the VCs from a brand name VC just goes, Brent, you guys have a bit of an honesty bias that might cost you some fundraising dollars. Sometimes you got to give them a little more of the show, a little less of the real. And I just remember telling the dude, bro, that's called integrity. I don't think you're the right guy for us.
It's crazy.
Literally just lie to me so I can go tell my LPs that we're good and then we'll be good. No, man, I'm gonna have to own these words someday. You're gonna have to own these words someday. And now, a lot of the funding freeze I think we're seeing is because a lot of VCs out there were just they hey, while the sun shines. Now their LPs are hey, what are those distributions you promised me?
Exactly.
I gave you money and the expectation that money would be coming back. When's that part of the fun ride?
A million percent agree. Agree. It's so crazy.
Drives me nuts. And so, by the way, now I think we're starting to normalize being honest in robotics. Mm-hmm. And I'm very hopeful for the future because I'm hearing more roboticists just say oh yeah, this is very much experimental over here. You know what I mean? Just having those hard conversations with people. Don't just chase dollars, chase results. Matters.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously have to start somewhere, right? You can't just
you
can't just all of a sudden
make it up.
So it sounds like the intent for expanding is via licensing.
That's probably the easiest way to expand. We still want to own our own facilities throughout the nation. The market is just so huge and there's such a need. Owning our own facilities does a couple of things. It allows us to keep iterating the tech, knowing the tech, we work on a lot of different, not just component manufacturing things. We work on warehouse and factory technologies that allow for much more automation and smart, intelligent design of the factory itself that we want to be able to test on our own customers. And the other side is, the big builders want to work with it. The big component and lumber yards want to work with it. But we don't just want to feed a beast that only the bigs grow on. So for the smaller and mid-sized builders, we can have our own facilities there to, build the panels that they so require so they can stay and grow their own business and not just be shut out by the bigs getting access to all the best stuff. Not to be trite, the rich get richer for a reason, right? The biggest players can keep playing with the biggest names. And we want to just make sure that there's always open avenues. The goal here is to end homelessness. The goal is to make housing affordable again. I want my daughters to be able to afford a home. And right now, their version of a starter home price and my version of a starter home price aren't even in the same freaking atmosphere, man. We're on two different planets and I got to end that. And so for us, we want to make sure that supply can keep increasing. It doesn't get more dangerous. As labor dwindles, we can get the labor that we have there. And eventually, quite frankly, the vision at BotBuilt is we talk to trade schools, we talk to high schools, we talk to middle schools all the time. We want to make going into the trades cool again. Because these kids just know if I just can get them the satisfaction that doing a job well, no matter what the job is, I don't care if you write code or you're my freaking carpenter, if you get the satisfaction from a job well done, you're going to do things. And so for us, we can be hey, you want to be a carpenter? And maybe. You want to play with robots all day? This is your carpentry tool, bro. Welcome to it. We have 16-year-old boys that can run our factory. You can be doing this. And it makes a big difference.
That's awesome. I mean, we talked about before we started recording, which is your perspective and mission, realizing starter home price for your daughter, for example, versus what you just mentioned, right? Your starter home price. It's absolutely outrageous. Everybody's feeling it. Everybody sees it and knows it. So I am very, very behind your mission and really can't wait to see you keep growing and succeeding. Also absolutely. And also that dynamic of teaching high school kids about what it means to get into trades today and how it's different from what I think is really just a disservice to trades in general. I just don't think there's any marketing or awareness or whatever needs to happen for people to understand, kids to understand that this is an awesome industry profession, both for, you get to work with your hands, you get awesome results, you get good money, right? Good pay. Yeah, so I just don't think it's there, but I do think companies like you are going to allow kids to start understanding that it's a great industry to get involved with. So awesome,
For
awesome
sure.
mission, man.
I appreciate that very much. I believe in
Definitely
it very strongly, and that's what we're in the fight for.
awesome. And so in terms of like reach, as you mentioned, you know, local where your warehouses are located as it relates to being able to sell to different markets, like what is the typical reach? Like within a state, one state
Now,
over?
really, if we're within 400 miles of wherever we're
Okay.
building, that's pretty doable. I like to be within 200 miles, just because by that point you can really be efficient with your trucking, really efficient with your timing there.
Okay, yeah.
But for us right now, we've been stretching that reach as far as it'll go, just because the demand
Yeah.
is there, and we try to work with every home we've put through our system has been a different custom home. Whether even if it's just like a spec home built by a national builder, or it's a true
Hmm.
like massive custom out in Pinehurst, we're trying to pump as many different plans through the system as possible. And so for that,
Yeah.
if, like our first homes were in Northwest Arkansas, because the custom home builder out there said, "Hey, I want to try it." We're like, "All right, give us all your plans, let's run them through, and we'll ship you panels." And it was fun to watch.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome, man.
Thank you.
Anything else I missed?
Boy, no, man, I just want to thank you for your service. I'm a big believer in the cause that we both fought for, that we both joined into. It's something that I don't think enough people get to do in their life, which is kind of a
Mhm.
shame, right? Like, obviously, I don't want the world to be necessitating everyone has to go to war at some point, but there's something valuable there, and I just love
Yeah.
what you're doing, and really appreciate that you're giving veterans a voice, and veterans like me a chance to listen to other vets like that you've had on the show in the past, just to kind of hear that like story and be like, all right, yeah, we're not alone. We've got this together.
Yeah.
It's a fun time, and we've been through hell, so we might as well build something. Let's go.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you, man. Before we close out though, last two questions. One will be any book or books you like to recommend.
Yeah, so I think I'll let you know. There's a book I have been reading called Ghost Warriors recently. It's about kind of this Israeli unit that is just like, I mean, it sounds awesome until you actually get into the book, and then you're like, wow, your life sucks. Like, it is
Yeah.
about disrupting terror networks, not from cool satellite feeds or some intel that we got on the wire. These cats are living life among the terrorists every day, and
Hmm.
then having to have this dichotomy of like, just it's like getting deployed to the worst parts of Afghanistan and then coming home to your wife and kids at the end of it every day. Nightmare. So I firmly recommend that. And then another one I read is this. It's a biography called Donovan, America's Master Spy. Pardon me. And this guy, Wild Bill Donovan, Irish immigrant, comes to the States. He's a World War One hero, like Medal of Honor recipient. And then World War II kicks off, and he's really the father of the CIA. But he started this thing called the OSS. He was brilliant and gifted lawyer, right? Gifted soldier, but he believed in discipline. That's where he made these amazing soldier decisions as an officer. He was a brilliant tactician who trained his men relentlessly, because he knew that war was worse than anything he could train them for. And that means that his units were usually the ones that were doing the best in all of the worst fights. And that's just amazing to see. So eventually he becomes this kind of political, high powered lawyery figure, to the point where he's at this point, a Republican dude that actually Franklin Delano Roosevelt calls upon him to get advice. And Donovan had been over to Europe multiple times, and he was kind of building this intel collection unit on his own. And what he realized was, like, every European nation has intel collection except the US. Like, we have the FBI, and that's adorable, like, whatever. But we need more than just police work. And by the way, this kicked off this like long-standing feud between the FBI and the CIA, because the FBI thought, like, we'll do everything, and the CIA said, no, that's not what we're talking about here. But when he started the OSS, it was really not just about collaborating with our European allies. It was about creating in America the sense that, like, if we want to know who the next Hitler is, we have to have boots on the ground, people gathering that information, so that we can prevent the next travesty that was, Hitler's Germany, and put that together. And Donovan lived a life that I think is just, it's like a million lifetimes all spanned into one. And it is something that, to me, if you read it, it's this guy Richard Dunlop. I think, Richard Dunlop is the author. Strongly recommend it, just because you'll go away thinking, like, I'm not that busy. Like, I'm really not that busy. Donovan is busy. I am not that
Yes.
busy. But two, you come away just really genuinely appreciating what it meant to stand up the greatest intel network that America's ever seen, from just a dude who had this brilliant idea of like, hey, we can do better, and just demanded that of the people around him. I just love it. So, and it wasn't always the best moral character. He had some. He was a good Irish Catholic boy that might have practiced polygamy, I guess, in the Lord's eyes. But he lived an intense lifestyle, and he created a legendary intel officer cadre that I just massively respect, and strongly recommend both of those books to give you good ideas.
Awesome.
What it's like on the flip.
Yeah, awesome. We'll drop those in the show notes. Last but not least, tell us about your wellness practice. What does that look like for you?
It means having accountability. So the last 2 years have just been a grind working, and I've really lost a lot of those wellness practices I've taken on. Sure. So good friend of mine, a good friend from church, and he's a builder out here too, and he knows this, and he's actually built a few homes with BotBuilt. He called me up and he politely, nicely said, "Brent, you're fat." And that's, you gotta have a friend like that, right? Just be like, dude, what are you doing right now? Like, what?
Yeah, you gotta have a friend like that.
Yeah. What size suit is that, bro? So, he just kind of walked me through that. And so now my wellness practice involves keeping a good, steady diet, hitting my macro goals, sharing that with a friend. Like, if you're not using an app that you can share with a friend, you're not really using an app, right? Like, it's gotta be something that they can hold you accountable to. I still work out. I still run. My wife got into running marathons and ultras recently over the last few years. That's been fun to run with her. But like, just because I can run a marathon doesn't mean I'm in shape. Just because I can go lift a whole bunch of weight doesn't mean I'm in good shape. It just means, like, as one doctor before one of my selection event physicals said, he asked me about my diet. And I was like, well, I usually have like steak and eggs for breakfast and usually some cereal. And then I'll have like lunch, usually another couple of steaks, maybe some chicken. Dinner is usually steak and eggs again. I love eggs. And then I'll do like a Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Lucky Charms in the bowl right before bed. And he's like, boy, you have the best blood I've ever seen. You need to hug your grandparents because you hit the genetic lottery, you slob. You absolute monster. And it's like, just because you can do the things might just mean you hit the genetic lottery, right? Like, it's about being well. So I've really started to combine now the diet with the actual just getting back after it. I have to work out in the morning. I love working out in the morning. Yeah. Some of our team works out with us here at BotBuilt. We just have a gym right in the factory. And we we just have a team room environment, team room workout. Let's go and let's get after it. And just opens up the brain and makes you sweat. Today I had the best compliment I've ever had. One of my employees just came up to me and just said, "You're not in charge of the workouts anymore." So with a wry smile, I'm like, hell yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
That's good. That's good culture building, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Awesome,
that's all I wanted.
That's awesome.
Indeed.
Brent, really, really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. Learned a lot of awesome things. I'm really excited to share it. And really excited to see BotBuilt grow. Hopefully I'll eventually buy a home from BotBuilt. That'd be really cool.
That'd be awesome. Happy to buy it. Help it build it. That's for sure. Awesome,
Thanks, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build.